Good evening, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar titled Refocus Your Retirement. I'm Tammy West, Chief Experience Officer at COPFCU, and I'll be today's moderator for the webinar. Before we get started, I'd like to go over a few items to help you participate in today's event. We've taken a screenshot of an example of your attendee interface. You should see something like this on your own computer desktop in the upper right-hand corner. To expand or collapse your control panel, click the orange arrow button. You're listening in using your computer's speaker system by default. If you would prefer to join over the phone, just select phone call in the audio pane and dial in. Information will be displayed. All attendees are muted for today's webinar to ensure the best experience for all participants. Click the handouts arrow to view or save the documents from today's webinar. To ask questions during the meeting, please click the questions arrow and type your question inside the panel box. You can send in your questions at any time during the presentation. We'll collect these and address them during the Q&A session at the end of today's presentation. Now I'm going to turn the webinar over to your presenter, Joseph Duffy of Everest Financial. Joe is a lifelong resident of the Cincinnati area. He grew up on the west side of Cincinnati, graduated from St. Xavier High School and the University of Cincinnati. For more than 30 years, Joe and the team at Everest have been helping clients achieve their retirement goals. Joe, take it away.
Tammy, thank you very much for that wonderful introduction. Good evening, folks. I'm glad you're joining us this evening for a little discussion on what we call Refocus Retirement. Charting your course, making your money last all the way through retirement. A couple of facts about me. Again, like Tammy said, I've been in the business for 30 plus years. I have very strategic partnerships with CPAs, attorneys, and financial institutions. Over 30 hours of Social Security strategies training. But probably one of the most important things to notice on here is my RICP designation, Retirement Income Certified Professional. This is really where I spend the majority of my time, helping people plan their retirement, helping them make sure that their money lasts the rest of their life. A couple disclosures that I need to make relevant to you. One of the things that I would point out is our broker-dealer, Madison Avenue. They do review these presentations, so just so you know, they have been reviewed. Our commitment today to you is to provide some good financial advice and kind of give you an overall picture of what to expect in retirement. You know, I know if you look at any of the studies done about the most stressful events in people's lives, retirement is always in the top 10, which is kind of mystifying. Something that should be so happy and joyful, but again, creates a lot of stress, and that's what we're going to talk about. I want to make sure that we provide enough information to get you to understand why is it important to work with somebody, a financial organization that focuses on making sure that your money lasts the rest of your life. So why is retirement stressful? If you think about it, retirement is like going on a journey. It's like taking a voyage to a place, to a destination that you know very little about. You have no experience with it. Maybe what you've read about, maybe what you've talked about. But until you're in it, you're not really sure what to expect. And that's why retirement planning is so important, that you take a look at everything that it's going to require. Just realize asset accumulation is what got you to retirement, but proper asset distribution is what's going to see you through retirement. And that's what we're going to talk about. How do we do that? So what really happens when you retire? You know, my brother, I'll tell you a quick story. My brother just retired recently from 40 years in Arizona. And he tells me about how much his life has changed, how much more he's doing different things. But still, the number one thing that bothers him is how is he going to make sure that his money lasts the rest of his life. So obviously, I've been working with him very hard to make sure that he feels like that's going to absolutely be a reality. And again, this seminar, I would say, this webinar is more of what I call a 30,000-foot view of retirement. What are the things that we need to be considering? Again, it's not just about asset accumulation. We have to think about what are all the stresses going to be on that asset, the amount of money that we accumulated throughout our lifetime. So we're going to focus today on the three biggest: longevity, stock market volatility, inflation. And just so you know, we do have topic-specific seminars here at COPFCU. One of them is called Taxes and Retirement, so we hope to see you there. So let's first talk about longevity. You know, when you think about Social Security was started in 1935, and the full retirement age at that point was 65. But yet the average life expectancy for men was only 58. The average life expectancy for women was only 62. So Social Security was never meant to be what it has become. And you look at the increase in longevity of how much longer people are living. My father just passed away 2 days before Thanksgiving. My father never believed that he would live as long as he did. His father died when he was in his 60s, mother in her 70s. My mother, on the other hand, her mother passed away 1 month shy of 100. So their retirement plan was always bent towards my father passing away, my mom outliving my father. But as it turned out, my father lived 2 months shy of 97. So again, we are living longer. That puts a massive stress on how much money that we saved. Makes it a little more difficult to make sure that we don't run out of money. So again, one of the biggest risks that we need to consider. The next is inflation. I mean, I don't have to tell any of you, I'm sure you see it all the time. I don't know how many of you eat Skyline, but I happen to cherish a three-way. Just go look at what the price has been over the last 2 years on the price of a three-way. It's gone on average of $7 to $9. I know the government tells us that inflation is not running that high, but it is. And to think about this, you know, if we're going to live, if our life expectancy, I mean, if I go into retirement at 65 and I think I'm only going to live 10 years, probably not going to be that worried about inflation. But what if I live 30 years? So inflation is a big deal. And when you consider what it would take, and this is a chart that only shows a 3% inflation rate. If you're living a $50,000 lifestyle today, in 20 years, it's going to take 90,000. In 30 years, it's going to take 121. So again, you have to make sure that your financial plan is in taking into consideration inflation, because again, it can really be a problem. Back about 20 years ago, I was getting ready to run my first marathon for the Leukemia Foundation. I was on a cruise actually, and I had an 18-mile run to do on a treadmill. And I noticed that everybody was glued to the television. Now this was in 2000, mid 2000. Now, if any of you remember, we had 3 years in a row that the market fell. Okay, so you can imagine all these people going on a cruise. Maybe this was the cruise of a lifetime. They worked their 40 years, are on this wonderful cruise, and here they are glued to the TV because the Dow's dropping. That's not the way most people, I think, want to go through retirement. We don't work 40 years just to survive in retirement. We work because we want to thrive in retirement. So again, this is something that is very, very important and on most people's mind. Stock market volatility. And what's really interesting recently is the speed in recent years of the market drops. I mean, I don't know how many of you realize, but last year or 2 years ago in 2020, 3 years ago now, the market dropped considerably in just a matter of a few days. I mean, in 2020, and started on February 19th, it only took 22 days for the US market to drop 30%. Now consider year 2000 and 2001, 2002, it took 369 days. That means that we need to be poised for when these events occur. We need to realize that, look, we may not have 300, 400 days to react to this change. We may only have 22 days. So what does that mean? That means that our assets have to be allocated to different asset classes so that we are protected with the majority of our money from a massive downturn in the market. And let's look at some simple math here. And this comes up a lot with clients when we talk about market downturns and what it's going to take to get back. But if you consider that if you had $1 million in the stock market and we had a 50% market decline, you're left with $500,000. Now, what is it going to take to get that $500,000 or get that $1 million back? It's not a 50% market gain, because a 50% market gain only brings us back up to 750. We have to make 100% to get back the 50 we lost. So again, something that we have to be very cognizant of when we are in retirement is market volatility. Now, many of you may recognize this young man by the name of Warren Buffett. I'm sure everybody knows him, the wizard from Iowa. Very smart man. Warren Buffett was long considered the master or the king of what we call value investing. And Warren Buffett had one of his biggest things that he would say to people is his rule number one rule was never lose money. His number two rule was never forget rule number one. So again, and I love this saying, it's insane to risk what you have for something you don't need. And what is he really talking about? He's talking about the fact that a lot of people take too much risk in the market. Prudential used to have a commercial, and the commercial was all about what is your number? And what they were asking is, do you know what rate of return you need in order to make it through retirement? We used to, when we did seminars back again in 2000, 2001, in 2001, during one of our seminars, I met a woman who inherited $2 million from her mother. She had an art studio in Fort Thomas, Kentucky. By the time I met her, her financial advisor, you know, in the late 90s, the market was on a tear. You could put the Wall Street Journal against the wall, throw a dart, the stock was going up. That quickly changed after the tech bubble. By the time I met her, her $2 million was down to $800,000. And I asked her, I said, what did you say to the advisor was your goal? What was your goal with this money? She said, all I asked for was to make an additional $20,000. Well, back then you could have put the money in a 6% CD and made 3 times what she needed. I mean, even 1% is really all she really needed. She said she would have been happy if she could double that to 40,000. Think about that. 2% rate of return would have gotten her goal, but instead the advisor put in Janus funds and she lost quite a bit. So again, you have to realize, how much do I need? What is it going to take? How much risk do I need to take? And this little illustration just kind of shows you that there is a lot of different investing strategies out there. What is the number one strategy used today? For most people that are accumulating wealth, buy and hold strategy. And even for people that are in retirement, a lot of advisors out there think that, hey, if dollar cost averaging works as I put money in, why wouldn't dollar cost averaging work as I take my money out? And I have a good story to tell that here in a little bit, but it doesn't work. And there's a lot of other strategies that are out there, like the endowment models, the guaranteed income strategies, pension plan type strategies, and defense strategies. There are strategies out there that, should the market turn south, there is a plan. So again, if you don't know how much risk you're taking, we have what we call a risk analysis. And since you are members of COPFCU, there's absolutely no cost to you to get this analysis done. So I highly recommend that you do that. And when you get the risk analysis done, it's going to give you a score from 0 to 100. 100 being the riskiest, 0 being the least riskiest. You're going to know exactly where you fall on the risk spectrum. And then you're going to know whether or not and we have a little quiz for you to take. And then we see whether or not the portfolio that you have actually matches up with the risk that you think you want. So income planning is really a customizable document. One thing I would really try to get a press upon you is that income planning is not a static process. It's a dynamic process. It's constantly changing. And that's something that we do, is we always meet with clients, typically every 6 months, make sure that they're doing what they said they were doing as far as spending, and make sure that we need to make adjustments and we make them appropriately. This is just a simple little illustration, what we call a 3-legged stool. Most people today have some or some at least of the 3, either a pension, Social Security, personal savings, and investments. So it's important to understand what legs you have and how those legs are doing. One of the things that we do for Social Security is we have an actual program that we can run for you that I'm going to talk about here in a minute. The one thing I would say about Social Security is most people don't even realize the value of what they potentially could collect from Social Security. When I ask people, what do you think your most valuable asset is? 99% of the time, my home. And when you look at the national average, $221,000 national average, now this is probably a little dated. I'm sure it's a little bit higher, but it's nowhere close to what the typical couple will receive as far as Social Security benefits. And most people have no clue how to go about collecting them. Should I start at 62 or should I wait till 70? And this little chart shows you the potential difference it could make. I mean, you know, somebody starting in this example at age 62 collects $1,500. They wait till full retirement age 66, they're up to $2,000. Wait to 70, you're at $2,640. Now, does that mean that everybody should wait till age 70? No, not in my opinion. I will always ask people, and again, this is a very subject-specific seminar that we do. We do a Social Security seminar, and I'll always ask people, you know, what do you think your goal is in Social Security? Is it to maximize it? Everybody raises their hand. But to maximize it, again, what if I'm 65 years old and my life expectancy is only 75 years old? I don't think I should wait 4 more years to start, or 5 more years to start collecting. So life expectancy is one of the biggest drivers of when should I start Social Security. And there's some other benefits about waiting till the end. I'm not going to go through all this stuff because you guys won't remember it anyway, and it's kind of boring. But the good news is, you know, spousal benefits, maybe you qualify for. Survivor benefits, maybe you qualify for. Maybe even ex-spouse benefits. If you've been married before and it lasted at least 10 years, you might be able to collect some assets there. The nice thing is that you can request a Social Security analysis that we do for you. Okay, Social Security Solutions, again, no cost. Doesn't cost you a penny to do this because you're members of COPFCU. So ask yourself a question. When it comes to retirement, you know, your working days are over. It's the first day of your retirement, and you're thinking about this income that needs to last you 10, 15, 20, 30 years down the line. How much of that income would you like to be guaranteed, and how much of it do you want non-guaranteed? Majority of people I ask when I sit down with them, there's 2 questions I ask. First of all, how much money are you willing to lose, and how much of your income do you want guaranteed? Most people will say, I'd really like not to lose any. That's not always a reality. And most of them will say, I'd love to have all my income guaranteed. So again, we need to take those things into consideration. And other thing I didn't mention about myself is I am duly licensed independent advisor, which means any kind of solution, whether it's insurance-based, securities-based, I'm able to bring to the table. And believe me, you need, when it comes to planning a plan for money to last the rest of your life, you need to bring as many options to the table as possible. So we talked about market risk, and a lot of people never heard of what we call sequence of return risks. I'm going to do a little story, tell you a story about 2 brothers. The first brother, John, retires in 1990 with $500,000. He needs a $30,000 income stream. John just puts some money in the market, leaves it in the S&P 500. 10 years later, John's collected $30,000 a year. He's got $1.2 million in his account. Sound like a successful plan? I think so. His brother retires 10 years later, Steve. And Steve retires in 2000 with the same amount of money, $500,000. Takes the same income stream as his brother. But lo and behold, 10 years later, he doesn't have $1.2 million. He has $96,485. So when you look at these 2, what is the difference? What did they do differently? Absolutely nothing. They both did exactly what the other did. They left their money in the market, and they left themselves subject to the ups and downs of the market. It's kind of like going fishing. If anybody's ever gone fishing on Lake Erie, storms can come in really quick. So I want you to imagine that you're out there in Lake Erie, storm kicks up, you're in an inner tube Would you like somebody to come by and pick you up out of that water and maybe put you on their boat? Of course. But see, when you leave your money in the market, you don't have that. If the market goes up, you go up. If the market goes down, you go down. There's got to be another plan. Remember, when you retired, the whole story changed. You went from a day of collecting paychecks to now you want play checks. Okay, so this market volatility does not play in your favor. When we were retired, when we were working and we were putting money in our 401k plans and we're in our 20s and 30s and 40s, most of us never paid any attention to it. Market went down, our account value went down. But if we listen to the financial advisor, like Joe Duffy, who was telling you what to do with your money, you realize that these market downturns were actually in your favor. You were buying low. You're dollar cost averaging. But guess what? Story changes once you walk out the door and retire. This market volatility does not play in your favor. So again, I told you, I'm both insurance based and securities based. So when we think about growth, when we think about risk, this just kind of shows you an overview of everything that might be possibly be brought to the table. Stocks, mutual funds, variable annuities, bonds, fixed index annuities, CDs, cash. Now, many of you may not understand some of these, and that's okay. We always have, again, we have a very specific seminar that talks about what is an annuity. I get a lot of questions. What's the difference between a variable annuity, fixed index annuity, fixed annuity? So again, we have a product specific, annuity specific seminar you can come to here at COPFCU. So let's talk a minute though about bonds and fixed index annuities. If you understand how a bond works, a bond is basically a debt instrument. You are loaning money to a company, let's say Procter & Gamble. So you give Procter & Gamble $100,000, they pay you back an interest rate. Fixed index annuity, I'm actually giving the money to the insurance company and I'm participating in the increase of an index. The difference between these two is the reaction to interest rates. So this chart shows you, says, should you consider a bond? 54-year historical chart. What has been happening to interest rates? They've been coming down since the 80s. Okay, if anybody remembers mortgage rates back in the 70s and 80s, we had a president in the 70s, Jimmy Carter. CD rates were double digit, but so were mortgage rates. And interest rates have been coming down ever since. So that was a great time to be in bonds because bonds work inversely to interest rates. But what is going on with bonds now? What is going on with interest rates now? They're going up. All right, interest rates are going up. Now, we all love it. Those of us that are putting money in fixed annuities and putting our money in CDs. But how about the people that are buying homes? The prime has really skyrocketed in 2 years. So you have to realize that and understand the relationship between bonds and how it affects annuities, how interest rates affect these two things. There's a gentleman by the name of Roger Ibbotson, statistician. He's a money manager. He owns a company called Zebra Capital Management. And he talks a lot. He actually wrote a white paper about bonds and fixed index annuities and why now may not be the time to be in bonds. So he wrote this: fixed index annuities consider the alternative. So fixed index annuities are now being used in a client's portfolio where we would normally have used bonds. Okay, so this shows you a chart over the past 20 years and how they've protected clients' assets. Fixed index annuities go up when the index goes up, but they hold their value when the index value goes down. And quite frankly, the way interest rates have been going, they actually do better in a rising interest rate environment. Their cap rates go up, bonuses go up, all kinds of things go up. So instead of being harmed by rising interest rates with bonds, you're actually benefiting from the rising interest rates with fixed indexed annuities. I know a lot of this probably doesn't make any sense to you, but that's okay. We're just trying to show you that there are alternatives, and these are all the things that we bring to bear when we put together a retirement income plan. So we generate their portfolio. We generate how much money should be in different places. We also do something that's called segmentation. And segmentation is what really protects our clients' money, because we realize that money that you're going to use in the next 30 days shouldn't be in the same thing that you're going to use 10 years from now. So the money gets segregated and put in buckets from 1 to 3 years, 3 to 5 years, 5 to 10 years, 10 years plus. So those are all the things that go into developing an income plan for you. So again, the FIAs bring safety, growth, guaranteed income, cash money funds. These are all our safe money options. So when a client says to me, Joe, I am really scared to death, I really don't want to lose any money. Back in 2002, I met a couple, Bob and Colleen. And Bob was getting ready to retire. He had about 6 months to retire. He worked in construction for many, many years. And when I met them and I went to their house, Colleen said, I want to make one thing paramount to you. Bob had $1.2 million. Remember, this is in 2002. Bob had $1.2 million and he's down to 800. And so she said, I just want to make sure that Bob, he's worked so hard. I don't want him to lose any money. So I put together a financial plan for him. I was putting their money in 10 different buckets. I presented the plan. She said, well, we're going to give this to our daughter, Karen. Karen works for Price Waterhouse. So you can imagine, I was thinking, I'm never going to hear from them. There's going to be analysis paralysis with the Price Waterhouse. But what actually happened is she called me a week later and she said, when can we get back together? They loved your plan. And what they really, truly loved about it was the safety features that I had inside their plan. Well, Colleen passed away 6 years later in 2008. Bob passed away in 2015. 2 of the 3 daughters came to my office, and Karen, who worked for Price Waterhouse, said, I talked to my sisters, and we want you to do for us what you did for our parents. And so, and surprisingly enough, we started with $800,000. They had $797,000 after living on that money for that many years, 13 years. So again, we bring everything we can to bear to make sure that whatever it is that you're looking for, safety, growth, whatever it is, we make sure that we get that into your retirement income planning analysis. And again, we'll do this analysis for you. No cost, no obligation. You're a member of COPFCU. These are one of the benefits that you get. And I know everybody's thinking, oh gosh, this is just what every financial advisor says. You have nothing to worry about. You're going to be just fine. Folks, I've been doing this for 30 plus years. That's why I have an RICP. That's why I have all the designations that I do. That's why I teach classes on Social Security, because I know that's what you need to be able to put together plans that are going to last, a lot of years down the road. So again, it doesn't hurt to get a second opinion. Get that risk analysis. Get the Social Security analysis. Let us take a look at what your goals are, what you're trying to plan for in your retirement income analysis. And also, Secure Act 2.0, we are going to be having a seminar. And there's a lot of things in that act that are affecting people in their retirement planning. One is their RMDs, required minimum distribution. So again, I hope we see you at the seminars here at COPFCU. These are our next workshops on March 8th, Financial Empowerment for Women. March 9th, Secure Act 2.0. April 12th, we're doing Social Security claiming strategies. Again, you can see the information on the screen. You can call Beth or you go to our website and register. I hope you guys, I hope this was some value to you. I hope anybody have any questions, you can click on it and ask a question.
Yes, at this time, I would encourage anyone, if you have any questions, to type it into the question drop-down box. Just click the arrow next to questions. and we'd be happy to answer those for you. And I will say, to give people a couple of minutes of time, Warren Buffett is actually from Nebraska.
Nebraska, you're right.
I knew
won't tell them what I said.
Idaho wasn't right. I was like, wait a minute, maybe Iowa, Nebraska. Genius Financial
Omaha.
Advisor. That's right, from Nebraska. Well, it doesn't appear that we have any questions at this time. I would encourage you, if you do have any questions, reach out to Joe and Beth. They work with quite a few of our members here at COPFCU. Obviously, a benefit to you, no obligation. Great information, great people to work with. All right, at this time, this concludes our